Wednesday, and welcome to the Screen Time Continuum. My name is Keelan, and I am here with brother Nick. What's going on, man? How are you? How you feeling?
Hey man, happy Wednesday. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Can't really complain. I could, but at this point in life, who can't, right?
True.
But yeah, honestly, I'm doing well. Can't complain. Usually, I'm saying I'm excited to talk about this one. Interesting talk is going to be in the future of this. That's really, yeah. With that being said, welcome to the Screen Time Continuum. It is Wednesday. We are here to cover White Noise, which is currently available on Netflix. White Noise is a film starring Adam Driver, um, Don Cheadle. I'm sorry, I blinked out really quick on the cast. Let me make sure I have that in front of me this time for you guys. White Noise is a film that came out in 2022. It is a drama comedy that is starring Adam Driver, Greta Gerwig, Rafe Cassidy, Don Cheadle, has a couple of cameos by Jodie Turner Smith, Andre 3000, and a couple of faces you might notice from other places. I think this had a little too many cast members to try to name them each one. So I'll just give you those couple of cameos. I think another one you might note is Bill Camp. I think I've seen him in a few things, and I had to go and look up his name, like I know his face. Outside of that, you might not know too many of the people in this. A lot of fresh faces. Kind of a fresh story, in fact, um, for the movie scene at least. White Noise is a film that is what's the word I'm looking for? Derived, adopted, right?
Adapted.
Adopted from a book. Adapted. Thank you. White Noise is adapted from a book named White Noise. The White Noise book, it came out in 1985 and it was written by Don DeLillo. So, yeah, that is the basis of where they got the information to write this movie. Noah Baumbach is the director and he wrote the screenplay. The synopsis or plot on this movie, as Google tells it, a college professor, Jack Gladney, and his family's comfortable suburban life is upended when a nearby chemical leak causes the airborne toxic event, releasing a noxious black cloud over the region that forces the Gladney family to evacuate. Um, what do you think of that explanation, Nick? Would you say that's a good one?
That's like 20 minutes of the movie.
I agree.
30
That's why I
minutes
had
of the
to
movie
ask.
at the most. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I had to ask.
Right.
The Netflix synopsis or plot says from Academy Award winning award nominated filmmaker Noah Baumbach comes an absurdist comedy about a family grappling with love, death, and an airborne toxic event. I think that's actually a little closer than the Google. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean
Still vague.
it's yeah,
Still vague.
still kind of big.
So yeah, let's just say that to start with. They don't really do you any justice with the explanations of what this movie is. The trailer also does you no justice, but we can get into talking about it. Let's also note that Google has it as a drama comedy, and Netflix simply has it as a comedy. They're not looking forward to any drama in the future, even though this is a film that really nobody knew about until it got to Netflix. It did come out last year in October, I believe, or no, excuse me, August 31st of last year. But nobody really heard of it. I didn't really hear or talk about it. There's even, like I said, Andre 3000 is in it. I remember there was a rumor going around he was in a movie, but they never talked about what the movie was. Um, didn't know it would be with Don Cheadle. But from there, we go into first impressions, thoughts, and or blah blah blah, beat by beat.
Beep blop boop.
So, what do you think, Nick? What are your first thoughts on this
Uh I have a lot of thoughts about this movie. Part of me wants to like it. Um there are like earnest moments in the movie that I think are really nice actually. But the problem is that its earnesty is sort of buried by this, I don't know, like try hard, artsy, um, I don't know. There's like this thing about it that it's trying to do too much. And it feels like every time there was a nice, earnest moment in the movie, it was followed by a very tedious, like artsy thing. This movie seems a lot like festival bait in a lot of ways. It's a commentary about getting older and dying, which I think is where the most quality comes from. Um, but this movie has like three different parts to it, and then it kind of wraps up everything fine. But it also, I don't know. I don't hate it all that much. I think it's kind of good, but I can't overlook the things that were meant to be annoying. Maybe I don't know if they were meant to be annoying, but I found annoying. So we can talk about those in more detail later.
Indeed, yes. I the three-part portion of this for me, I actually liked. I liked having that understanding that we're kind of moving on to a new discussion or a new concern, but we're aware that this other thing did happen, and so it's kind of a part of the discussion in this new scenario.
Right.
Uh, that's not usually done well by a lot of, it hasn't been done well recently, at least I should say. It was done halfway decently in this. I can't say I dislike that. This movie reminded me a lot of, at least when the portions where they tried to make it comedic, reminded me a lot of Fear of Loathing. Remember that?
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, This was like Fear of Loathing minus the hallucinogens. Like a lot of the ominous moments in Fear of Loathing make sense because they were on hallucinogenic drugs the entire movie. Um, in this, they're more spurred on by like anxiety and depression, which is an interesting thing to discuss in this, but it gets lost. I think this is a movie that is much better probably on the second watch after you've gotten through it and you get the gist of what's going on. Then you can pay attention to the entertainment portions. Outside of that, you're reading a book, and it's adapted from a book. So the first time around so far, it definitely felt like I was reading or watching a book. But I'm not disappointed fully. I agree with you. I don't hate it. And because of my theory with this one, just like I think I said that with our last movie as well, I think I'll be having to take a double. No, it was a movie before last, but I think I'll have to take a double trip, watch this one again at some point, and I'm sure I'll understand it a little better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Matter of
See,
fact,
that's
there's earlier scenes that after we got to the end, I was like, "Oh, that makes a little more sense now," even though it didn't make sense at all.
yeah. I think that that's where I have like a. I think you're touching on maybe one of my problems with the movie is that like there's this feeling that if you watch it again, it'll make more sense. But I don't know if that's 100% true.
Right.
Um, I found the dialogue to be gross. It's supposed to be gross, but I just don't like it. I know what the director was doing, but it was really annoying. The constant chattering of people. I mean, the movie's called White Noise, so it's no wonder that a whole bunch of white people, are making noise. But it was just really annoying.
Okay.
It was just really annoying, and I felt like the pacing of the dialogue was trying to be snappy and trying to be like punchy and sort of leaving the audience behind. Um, and so, yeah, I did feel like maybe that gives you the impression that a second watch will glean more interesting things, but I don't think that that's true because there's a lot of talking over each other. There's like four conversations going on in one scene.
Mhm.
It's just meant to confuse you. It's meant to confuse you, and also like I guess it's meant to parallel this sort of confusion of existentialism or existence, like this
Yeah.
chaos that we call life.
Life.
Yeah.
Right. I think 1,000%. I think that's what this movie. That statement in itself is almost this entire movie embodied. They want you to get everybody's perspective. They want you to empathize, sympathize, and hate everybody at the exact same time because that is human to have all of those feelings and emotions. And that's matter of fact, that's actually a better way to put it. This is a movie that, unlike most movies, this movie wants you to be human. This movie wants you to be a little too human, in fact, for you to be watching a movie. Um, and what I mean by that is they want you to understand everything and everybody, and that's not realistic. Some shit just ain't gonna make sense. But you still got to bring it full
Yeah.
circle. You know what I
And you're
mean?
not gonna catch a lot of the conversations that happen,
For sure not.
and each character talks like you know what it reminded me of? It almost reminded me of like, a Shakespeare on double speed.
Ooh,
Because
yeah,
each
okay.
each character would say like their lines were always sort of abstract and almost poetic in
Hmm.
the way that they were formulated and the words that they were using,
Hmm.
but the return of lines from the actor and like interacting with them was almost immediate, and it felt really jarring in a lot of respects. It felt like you were watching something at twice the speed because people were responding immediately, almost as soon as the character ends a word, the other person is already talking back at them.
Right. And I noticed that a lot, even though they didn't have too many. They had but three scenes together with Adam Driver and Don Cheadle. Their characters' names are Jack and Murray.
Hmm.
Um, I noticed that a lot, and what I attributed it to in that situation, and also when Jack was talking with, I did not get her name, but the chemist, um,
Hmm.
is that they're all professors. So they have this, as she said, in the moment where Jack tells her, like, "Hey, I need a favor," and she's like, "You need me to help you?" And he's like, "Of course, you're brilliant." And she's like, "Isn't that what we all say? Like, oh, I say you're brilliant. You say I'm brilliant." And it's that air of, no, we're all professors, we're all scholars, we've all been through these things in which nothing we say goes without integrity.
Yeah, but the
So
family was doing it too. They were
no, no, right.
talking over each other and responding too quickly and all that stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay, okay. I'm
I
I
think
was
it's
gonna say, I
just
think they were well, my comment was gonna be about the family. So with the professors, I was gonna say it's because like they were trying to point out a level of intellect, I guess. With the
mm,
family, I think it was just rude, but they were picking it up from their father.
I think it's more of a directorial choice to just like the director wants to inundate you with sound,
Okay,
almost to a point where you start to go a little bit crazy. And I
very
think
good
that
point.
they purposely did that in every scene. You have multiple conversations going on. You have loud bangs that
Mhm.
happen constantly. There's always background sound.
Are
And
you
I
saying
think
this movie?
he, huh?
No, I was just gonna say, are you saying this movie was shot in Los Angeles?
No, I think it's just, I mean, yeah, like it's definitely a purposeful decision on the
Mhm,
directorial part, and I think it would have been more impactful had it been used more sparingly. I felt like it was just too much for the entire movie to be like that. And there were
mhm,
and the thing is that the earnest moments that I actually liked were when the script wasn't doing that. Where when the script was had the two characters actually having a calm conversation with each
mhm,
other for a few minutes and then it goes back to the chaos.
mhm.
Um so yeah.
With what you're saying, I do feel like the one character that didn't really fall subject to that often was Heinrich. It's almost like when he
Right.
spoke, everybody listened, including the townspeople, which we saw later.
Right.
Um, which we have to get there so we can get to the false information and fake news portion of this, because that's a big portion of this movie as well, misinformation.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that until Murray said what he said, and then when it kind of came full circle a little later, I was like, "Oh, that's what we've been going through." I was wondering what that was. Um,
Family is the
see what was it? The family is the foundation of
center
misinformation, or something like that.
foundation of the world's misinformation.
Something of that
I
nature.
don't know 100% what the director's trying to
The
mean by that.
cradle of
Yeah.
misinformation.
Like, okay,
Sorry.
so should we stop having families or should we stop misinforming each other or should we do both? What do you which which one would you prefer? I
I
don't
mean,
know.
if he believes in that overpopulation thing, it might be a little bit of both.
Maybe, maybe. Also, speaking of spooky, this movie was shot in the area that the Ohio train derailment happened, and it's
No,
about
fuck.
a train derailment and
In
toxic
Ohio.
chemicals. Yes, some of the extras were actually living in the town
So
of East Palestine.
pack me out. Whoa, whoa, please don't never pack me out. Check this out. When I
Mhm.
saw the trailer, that was one of the things that made me like, okay, this is too real. Not realizing it was going to be in Ohio, and definitely not knowing what you just said.
Mhm.
That's spooky.
Super spooky. Yeah,
And considering that the movie got kind of went under the radar, and for what, the movie came out in August, the event in real life happened in February.
yeah. like a
And
month or
and
so
then its
ago.
movie hit Netflix in February.
Yes, it hit Netflix like
Too
the
much.
week of the train
Facts, man.
crash.
Too
Yeah.
much, man. Too much.
Something's going on.
I had already thought it, but that's too deep. Like for
Somebody's
real.
got some Simpsons powers over there.
Sam
Um,
says did it.
mhm.
So yeah, so let's I guess jump into the weeds and kind of get through the funnies and the non-funnies of this because there is a couple of interesting moments. So this movie takes place in 1984. They don't tell you the exact year, but in the second scene, Murray and Bobette are having a discussion, and he says it's been 16 years since 1962, 68,
Don't make me do
1968.
math.
Sorry.
Don't make me do math.
I'm not trying to. Sorry, I apologize. But no, yeah, 1968. I want to say it was. He said that he had began the Hitler studies program.
He's a what was he called? Um, it was what was his discipline? It was Hitlerism or
Yeah,
something
Hitlerism.
like yeah.
Hitlerism. And Murray was hosting a class on Elvis and his contributions, and I was like, "What is going on?" Like, I guess
Mhm.
that's what was going on in the 80s.
You know
And I
how I
actually
knew
believe
it
that could
was
be true.
in the 80s? Gas was 79 cents.
You silly. Yeah, at the grocery store, I definitely was like, "Is that 49 cents per pound?" All right now.
Mhm.
Like,
Take me
give me
back. Take
anything
me back
49.
to a simpler
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
I'll give you the internet for those prices
I
again.
think it was like strawberries for 48 cents a pound. And I was
Yeah.
like, say word.
Mhm.
Guess, look, what was that? That was that Reagan's America? 84?
Yeah.
Hmm, okay. And now we know who messed it up. No. So we begin 1984 and we find that out because of what Jack's talking about with Bobette. But the very first thing we see, and I think it's actually a very interesting way to begin this movie. We begin by seeing Murray giving his class a lecture on the American car crash and how it is the most epic and interesting thing that is seen in film at the time, and how fat, uh, the other cultures in the film industries just hadn't been able to keep up as of yet. However, the American film industry continued to move forward because their main thing was, hey, you saw that last crash? Watch us make this next one better. This movie is kind of like, hey, look at this crash. Hey, look at this crash. Hey, look at this
Mhm.
crash. Hey, look at this crash. And by the last crash, you're like, I like the last two, but what the hell am I looking at now? Um, that's kind of, you take that first scene, it breaks it down a little bit. But from there, we move into chapter one of this film of the three chapters. The first chapter is called Waves and Radiation. I actually can say this is the only title that or yeah, chapter title that didn't really make sense to me. Everything else was pretty spot on, but Waves and Radiation, I was a little lost, but I guess.
Yeah, I didn't
Um,
like this chapter. I think this is the worst one for
this is
me.
the worst, for sure, the worst chapter. No
Mm.
question, this is the worst chapter. For multiple reasons, but also it's the chapter that sets everything up. So I guess it's supposed to be boring because it's like the epilogue. Nobody
Yeah.
likes an epilogue. Name one book you never mind because I actually can name one off the top of my head. The Alchemist
The
had a
Lord of the Rings.
great. Look, you see, I went
Silmarillion.
straight to Alchemist. You go Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings. We just named two to have good epilogues, so never mind.
Yeah.
But it is Moving Monday on College Hill, aka the day of the station wagons, as deemed by Jack. And Babette's a little upset because she wanted to go and see because she likes to see the people. At first, I thought Babette would be a professor as well, but turns out she works down at the local community center, which is fine as well. Nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
But I wasn't exactly sure why she was excited, aside from the fact of being the wife of a professor. So she just saw it all the time.
She wanted to
For
see the
moving day,
fashion of the college girls,
the
to
fashion. You're
see
right.
what
That's
they
what she
were
said.
wearing. Yeah.
It was the fashion because she was talking about even the guys in their coats. Dang it! I wish I
Mhm.
caught that a little more because I was really confused. Like, why did it matter? But yeah, didn't catch on to that. So yes, it was 1968 when he started the program, and they have four children. Yeah, they have four children, and they're each other's fourth, which I guess is just bad math on Jack's part when he says that a little later. We see Babette sneak a pill, but Denise sees her and dun dun dun, her kid's a Snoopy. And like, hey, if you actually care about people and your parents, I guess you're gonna do some snooping and digging and make sure that they're not harming themselves. Um, I was curious to wonder if Babette had shown any level of addiction or something of that nature in the past, because Denise seemed genuinely concerned that her mother was making a mistake that she was familiar with. Just my take on that. Like, she was
Yeah.
adamantly on her.
I think it's more of a like a misdirect, right? Because you think that the pill is like some sort of antidepressant or
Well, it was supposed to be
antipsychotic.
technically.
It's kind of, but I mean, like, the bigger implications are much more. I mean, the real reveal is much more innocuous
Yeah,
than somebody who's an actual pillhead. But
yeah,
the movie makes you like wants you to believe that she might have a substance abuse issue going on.
yeah. I would have preferred her to have a substance abuse issue, but we'll get there.
She was abusing something, that's for sure.
Right. Um. So I will say they have a great sex life.
They
They
seem pretty
cuddle a little
happy
bit.
with each other. Yeah.
They do. And I thought it was
Mhm.
cool because you think about the fact that they do have so many kids and then they get married and then they had a kid together. They have now decided, all right, look, we're going to cuddle, we're going to read a book together, and then we're going to go to sleep. Ain't no sex being had. I thought that was actually pretty cool. But, when you get to a little later in what's going on, you kind of wonder um, what's the real reason behind the book reading in bed. And it doesn't seem as wholesome and pleasant as we want it to be. But we'll get to all of that.
Mhm.
Um, while he enjoys his work, Jack, also known as J.A.K. Gladney, and his wife are both, they're afraid of the future. They're both afraid of death. And they're afraid of being alone. So they're afraid of the kids leaving them and just being there with one another. And then one of them has to die eventually because that's how life works. And Jack lets it be known he would love to be the one to die first. This way, she could be left with the kids and she gets everything and she sees right through that. And she's like, nah, fool, you don't want to be left alone. I see it. I don't either.
Mhm.
Don't do that to me. I appreciated that because that was the first moment in this movie where I was like, oh, this is going to be a real movie. Like, they're going to talk about some real stuff. And they did. They got really
Yeah.
deep into the humanity, as I said a little earlier. They got deep into the humanity of this movie. It made
Yeah.
me interested in the book, actually. I don't know if I said that at the top, but when I
Well,
realized or found out this was a book, I got a little interested in it.
yeah. Again, the earnesty for me is within the existentialism of
Mhm.
these two characters struggling with getting older, um, and being afraid of death. I think that that's where the true earnesty of this movie comes in, and I think that again, I think it does itself a disservice by being so pompous and pretentious the rest of the time.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. I
know?
think I agree with that because they definitely, in my opinion, dove way too hard in on the professor side of things, especially for the
Yeah.
80s. I wouldn't, and you know what? I was barely being born. But I would not expect educated people back in that day to be pompous with one another. At no point did it make it to where we were looking at it to where it's like, oh, this is a class situation. Everybody was on the same playing field when we get to the point of where we're going. So there is no like class separation, but I fully agree that there was a lot of pompous air about this movie.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not coming from the characters, it's coming from the
it's
direction.
the movie in general, yeah.
Yeah, the direction and the writing has a sort of level of arrogance and pomposity to it that I think undercuts its earnesty.
It's almost like, hey, look how much we know and how we can hide it.
Yeah, look how cool we are and we're stylized and like
Yeah.
because this movie is very stylized, it's very it's almost Wes Anderson meets Paul Thomas Anderson. I feel like it's those two directors.
Paul Thomas Anderson.
There Will Be Blood,
Ooh,
Punch Drunk
wow.
Love.
Okay,
Yeah.
got you. I'm in air
And then
because I know
Wes
Wes Anderson.
Anderson
Yeah,
is like the Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, and yeah,
right.
yeah.
Which is unfortunately
A lot of
my
use of
favorite.
vibrant colors, a lot of use of symmetry. There's a heavy stylistic uh, um, thing going on in this movie
Hmm.
for sure.
Dang, you're right. It's really interesting how I will say I know that you always notice those technical things, and then when you say them, I'm like, man, Yeah, like, I actually saw the majority of that. It just I didn't read it the same way. Um, I always appreciate you sharing those things.
Mm.
So
We got Corey here. He's
Corey, what
hey
up,
Corey.
Corey? The author of the book, that's the jackass you're looking for. Oh, okay. So the book
That's where the
follows the same
pomposity
air.
comes from. Okay.
Okay, the book follows the same air. So we shouldn't be irritated with Noah. We should be looking to what's his name? I gotta find it again because I want to make sure I say it. Don DeLillo or
Mm.
Delilo. But yeah. So don't be mad at Noah. Be mad
Noah
at Don.
Baumbach.
Got it, Corey.
I didn't see a love or marriage story. Did you?
Yes, but
Okay.
not in the
That's
way
Noah
we.
Baumbach.
I'm sorry. The movie.
Yes.
A Marriage Story, the movie. No, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking me if I saw a marriage story in this movie. I'm like,
Okay. No, sorry.
yes, but not exactly. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Difficult question to answer in terms of this movie. But the movie itself, no, I didn't even know that movie existed.
Mm. I'd have to go check that out to know if it's Noah Baumbach's pretension that's seeping through, or if it's just the book. Could be one. Could be both. Could be both.
Well, look, you go watch that movie. I'll go find the book since that's what you're
Yeah.
interested in. That's what I'm interested in. I'm looking
I
at the
need to
book.
know where all of this pretension is coming from.
That's funny as hell.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, they start questioning the future. We see that Jack is taking German lessons. And then we see them at the grocery store, which, as we know, in suburbia is the seat of existence. That is where you do all of your congregating, where you see your friends, where you see and do everything and learn everything is in the supermarket. In there is where we see Jack and Murray. And that is where Murray says that family is the cradle of misinformation, as well as some other clever gems that he dropped. But this is also around the time where I realized, like, oh, we're going to be doing this all movie, huh? Yeah, just gonna be saying little clever ain't shit all movie.
Yeah. That's what I
All
meant
movie.
about the like
I know.
Shakespeare and two times speed. Everything is a quip. Yeah.
Hmm.
Every line is like a, you know,
Yeah. Every line is a part of the lecture they gave that we're about to get into.
yeah, it's like a cryptic quip that has layers of meaning on it. And you're supposed to be like, you know,
Peel the onion.
yes, yes, yes.
um,
But yes,
so
family is the cradle of all world misinformation was
right,
I mean, like I get what they mean because in this movie there's everybody is just throwing things at the wall to see if it sticks and there's this very deep insecurity with the inability to have an answer.
right,
And that sort of projects into the concept of life itself and the inability for us to have any answer about what the hell we're all doing here. Um,
right.
but I feel like there was more of like maybe a political there might have been a current time political reason that that's in there too, unless that
I
was in the book. I don't know.
that's a good question. And if we're clear, we know ain't too much changed. Um, it's only 40 years.
Except the gas prices.
Oh my god! Except the
I want to
gas
go back.
prices. I just filled up. I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, I do want to talk about it. So let's have a whole episode about that. No.
Hmm.
Um,
Back in my day, gas was 80 cents.
man, listen. I mean, I'm not. I wasn't in that day, but I do remember gas being under $2. I was a little tight. I was nowhere near driving yet, but I remember seeing it. Um, everything since I started driving. I think the lowest I've ever seen in my driving day is two and some change, maybe three. But it might be like 290 something. Might be the lowest I've ever seen. 299.
We
My first day
almost got
driving.
back to early 90s prices a few years back.
Ooh,
And I'll just leave it back. I'll leave it at that. Gas
ooh.
was at like $2 just 4 years
I
ago.
remember that. Okay, so I've seen it more than once. No, okay, fair
Yeah.
enough. Um, with that being said, as you guys now see, yes, we can have a whole episode about stuff like that too.
Yeah.
So, in the market, Murray also says the truth threatens our happiness and security. I think that um, is right in that ballpark of what they're trying to get at when you say that political agenda that might be looming about. I think
Mhm.
that's kind of hinting at something as well, like kind of keeping us in a ballpark, but not telling us what they're talking about
I
to
think it's
where it's
also
either. Mhm.
I think it's also a critique of the middle class, which I think is kind of stupid. Um, because like I feel like this is it's kind of like a last homage to the American middle class, because this is back when the middle class actually meant something.
Hmm.
At the early 90s were like kind of getting close to the decline of the middle class in America. So I think that there's a little bit of that as well,
Hmm.
where these parallels to death are not just about the individuals in the movie, but it's about like an idea. This fully stocked grocery store that looks beautiful and symmetrical, where all of your neighbors are there, and all the kids are playing in the streets, and you're waving at the neighbors with all of their kids out on the lawn.
Hmm.
Like that snippet of American culture hit a severe decline in the mid 90s. So,
Right. It's
um,
so funny the contrast between the way you just explained that one scene in this, and you put that together with the concept of the American Beauty movie,
mhm.
and there's your 80s and 90s.
Yes, yes, right. Yeah, the difference between the two, the shift into cynicism.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
that's pretty nutty. If you hadn't explained it like that, I might not have put those two things together. But
Yeah,
the way you explained that made those two things become parallel. Like, oh wow, that's chapter one and chapter two of the book of
right.
life. Um, so uh, yeah, we find out that the kids, the girls at least, don't too much care for Babette. They give her a hard time. Um, but at this point, Steffi has a discussion with Jack about, why she and her sister Denise have been getting into it. He's telling her to be nicer, give her a book back. She explains that she only wants the book because she saw Baba take the pills. Baba is what they call Babette for those who have not seen the movie. Um, and because of that, she's simply trying to find out what it is that her mom's taking because she knows she won't tell her. They get into a little tiff where he's like, "Well, what is she taking?" She's like, "I don't know. Ask Denise." And he's like, "Well, why don't I ask Baba?" She's like, "Well, ask Baba." But basically, stop asking me. I liked that scene because that's a reality in the moment of how parents might grill a kid for information because they told them what they heard, but that doesn't mean they have the answer for you. They're informing you the way you talk to them. Hey, this is what I do know. You can go
Hmm.
do the rest of the work.
Yeah,
Corey says the author said that American religion is the American people. He's sneering at the pointlessness of the little people living their lives in abundance with love for each other. Huh. Postmodernist scare quotes. Wait, yeah. Postmodernist scare quotes around everything American.
yeah. So that's
Huh.
where the cynicism is coming from. Which the irony of it is I look at things like that. I look at their life with their kids and their stupid little station wagon and their nice home, and I'm like, God, I wish I could have that.
Right. Yeah.
So it's so funny because like these postmodernists, like intellectuals, always poo poo the things that give us the most fulfillment and make us most happy.
Hmm.
And the irony of that is like like, yes, this movie does feel cynical about that, but it also is like inadvertently proving how endearing it is.
Right. I think I think the most interesting thing about that is most of the people who feel that way most likely lived a higher class of life than they're looking down upon. And with that being the case, they don't even understand the people that they're looking down upon. So they're not speaking from experience, they're speaking from it's that concept of speaking from an ivory tower. This is the
Hmm.
situation where I always tell people speaking from an ivory tower can doesn't always have to be a bad thing. Where did you start before you got to that ivory tower? If I've been down there with you and now I'm in the ivory tower, I see things you don't. But if I've never been down there and I'm looking from the ivory tower, then by all means, I probably have nothing to add to that.
Yeah.
I say that because it's interesting. Uh, uh, Donald Richard DeLillo is an American novelist, but he is considered by BBC America's greatest living writer. What American publication says that.
When? Yeah, it
I didn't
says
even
who.
hear the dude until tonight.
No, no, of course not. But
But
yeah,
yeah.
the postmodernism definitely I guess that's probably where I'm getting the cynicism from.
Mhm.
Um,
Fair
well,
enough.
these characters are supposed to be a mockery, which is interesting because I see them as earnest and sort of lovely,
Mhm,
not a mockery. You know.
mhm. Yeah. I guess. That's also a thing. He's in his 80s, so he has a different view on the world. Um, Something I've definitely been having that discussion with people. Yes, you were born in a different era, but where were you for the entire, last 50, 60 years? You missed something, didn't you?
Sitting in your ivory tower.
Sitting in your ivory
Yeah.
tower. So
Mhm.
yes, as we move on, Jack does confront Baba immediately as they're walking. He talks to her. Um, Denise, her own daughter, doesn't trust her, but when she says nothing's going on, he believes her and says, "Okay, whatever," and lets it go. Um, that night, Jack wakes up. He has a terrible nightmare, or what seems like a nightmare. Hindsight, I don't think that was a nightmare, but we don't know what that thing or person is. Um, I think he saw Mr. Gray. Actually, I know he saw Mr. Gray. The question
Yeah.
is, what was that? How?
It
Make it
could have
make
been the deja vu thing, right? Because Don Cheadle does mention deja vu and how it's like, you are, it's not that you're processing things twice, it's that you like, actually experienced it prior. So maybe
Mhm.
he was dreaming about killing the guy that was banging his wife.
Which is yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. Didn't think that deep into it. But so yeah, maybe it was a dream. Well, clearly that's how they make it. We go forward and we're in the school. The professors are having their discussion, talking about different theories and um basically actually they're mostly discussing natural tragedies. One of the professors believes that California deserves any natural tragedies that comes to them. And then they also begin talking about pissing in sinks and bowlless toilets.
Well,
And I'm
hold on
like,
though. He did say
what?
it's because California invented the lifestyle and that we should
Correct.
always be held accountable for that, which I don't
Correct.
disagree with.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. When he said that, even I was like,
Yeah,
he's right.
he's right.
Like for
We
real.
deserve it.
Blame Hollywood, but that's really what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah. They're having a discussion about pissing in sinks, and one of the funniest moments to me, uh, Professor 3000, because we don't know his name, was asked if he had ever had his back peeled, his flaky back peeled from sunburn by a woman on a beach, and he's like, what did he say? Like, uh, somewhere in Florida, and he was like, yes, and I was halfway naked to the waist, and the guy goes, from which way or from which direction, bro? First off, that's the nuttiest question I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, I couldn't get that conversation because there was three other conversations happening
Oh, very
during
much
that
so.
scene.
So,
So,
in order for me to pull that, uh, I think I watched that scene about 2 or 3 times to pull just that one conversation. I don't know what the other guys were talking about. I didn't even try to
mhm.
focus on them. I focused on those two, and I pulled that, and that's all I got out of it. Oh, and I focused on what Jack was asking of the female chemist, whose name I don't have,
Mhm.
and
What
she
up, Big
basically told him
Mike?
bring the pill. Say it again.
Big Mike's
Oh, Big
here.
Mike, what up,
What's up,
Mike?
brother? Uh, you gotta come back. We miss you, man.
Big
Yeah.
Mike, come back. This is where
He'll
you
be
ought
back soon.
to
He'll
be.
be back very soon, and we'll have to torture him with some terrible movies.
Oh yeah, we're doing a
Corey says,
musical. It'll
"What's
be his
up to
first
Big
one back.
Mike too?"
We're definitely doing musical. Mike's first one back.
Oh man.
Um, so Jack helped Murray in a lecture. Oh, that's what it was. Murray had asked Jack to help him with his lecture so that he could kind of win this. I guess the battle of the scholars. Whose lecture wins the most notoriety. I guess, or whatever they were fighting for.
He also wanted kind of a boost from Jack because Jack could pull in more people,
Right.
and yeah,
That's a great way to explain it. He wanted a great opener. He
yes,
needed a better opener.
yeah.
Something else I did not mention. Murray in the store had nothing but black and white items in his cart. That means that Murray was shopping on the welfare aisle. Interestingly enough.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm, mhm. And we don't see until at the end of the movie when they're going through the store. That's when we see that. I think it's aisle 4 is the welfare aisle. That's where some of the other teachers are, and it's like kind of showing like, hey, all the teachers shop on this aisle except for Jack because he has dual income.
And he wears a robe,
He does wear a
a
robe and
gown,
glasses. But yeah,
a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
gown,
More of a gown. Yeah.
like a
Um,
judge's gown.
he is the foremost authority on this subject. So yeah, so they mesh in what I thought was confusing at first, and that scene proves exactly what you were talking about with the consistency of dialogue and the overlapping of the discussions. These are two people giving monologues over one another, kind of in a tandem, kind of in a back and forth 1 2 1 2 kind of a beat, but their main point is Elvis and Hitler both
Love their mothers.
appealed to the crass the crowds of death. Say it again. They did what?
They both love their mothers.
Yes, they
That's
both
all I
love their
could really
mothers.
get from that because they're both
Oh,
talking at the same time.
yes. So they started with they both love their mothers, and then they talked about how their mothers love them, and that bred the type of men that people love because they understood how to win love. And once they won the love of the people, they utilized it in the ways in which they utilized it. Elvis for people to forgive his transgressions and just rock their hips to his music. And Hitler, well, we know how that turned
We know.
out. We even watched a few movies about it.
Mhm.
But so yeah, that I thought that was actually a very interesting way to go back and forth. Fortunately for me, I've heard way too many lectures, not necessarily in the same vein, but that's a very I've seen that style before. People use that style to kind of over inundate you with information, and whether you realize it or not, you do absorb the majority of it, at least the hot points. And if you're really good, you know everything everybody said. But
It's
at
sort
that,
of like again, another directorial choice to have just a cacophony of sounds that really just sort of drives you a little bit crazy.
well, yeah, at the same time, you're getting the truck screeching and slamming on the brakes down the road. You get the swelling of the train horn and the crash and the explosion all during that lecture back and forth, back and forth. So
Right.
yeah, no, I don't think you're really meant to hear what they're talking about. But again, I kind of had to know.
Oh yeah, I mean, I wanted to know. It's just that again, stylistically, they chose that it was more important to sort of create a meta ambiance about the movie than to actually
Mhm.
just make a good story.
Yeah, this
Um,
movie is almost a stage play.
it reads just like a play.
Hmm.
It reads just like, and the dialogue is very play esque.
Hmm.
Um,
I could see this being great on stage. I think the stage play over the screenplay, the stage play would probably blow your socks off.
Maybe I don't know. I find it a little bit too um, verbose
Mm,
and sort of like it waxes poetic too much in the dialogue in a manner that doesn't feel natural between people. It makes you feel
right.
like these
Uh,
people are acting and they're not actually characters
yeah,
sometimes. Yeah.
they're actors. They're not humans. Or whoa, they're actors. They're not real people who we're listening to talk. They're reading dialogue and giving us a scenario. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't think there was a proper way to articulate that.
Corey's got another take here.
Corey says, well, the postmodernist stance is one of intentional repressive intolerance against folk populism. Folk populism? Not sure what that is. Um, the sort of people with mass appeal and populist energy behind them is not to be allowed
Right.
ever.
Right. Yeah. So yeah,
Oh, okay. What the
yeah.
discussion was about. Got you.
Hmm.
And that's deep. I
And I
mean,
guess that
I
could
kind
make
of already
sense
saw it as
too,
that deep, but I'm
because
sorry.
this would be intellectually the rise of the postmodernist movement around the 80s. So it could be, yes, that they're overutilizing sort of postmodern critique on
Mhm.
things and stuff like that. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
good way to explain.
but then that also goes back to this concept of misinformation, right? Because the postmodernist philosophy is that there is no truth,
Say
um,
anything.
and that yeah, everything is basically subjective. So
Mhm.
you have
Especially
this
if they telling
concept,
you it can't be real.
right? So you have this concept of like that's why the fam. Okay, now I get it. That's why the family is the cradle of misinformation, right? Because the first lies you hear are from
Or from your
your
family.
family. Yeah.
Oh, COVID.
No, no, no. We were batting 1,000. Don't worry about
I'm
it.
just saying, I think that's the that real life political
I
agenda we
think
were
there
looking
was a
for.
little bit of a parallel to that, definitely.
Yeah,
And even more of a parallel is the actual thing that happened in Ohio and the misinformation that went around what was going on with
the
that.
fact that they
So
haven't pulled this movie.
I know it's kind of weird, right?
It's
Kind of almost feels like it's on purpose. I mean, I'd be
almost like
suspicious
they
if
want
this
you to
wasn't.
believe that people were talking about this movie and not the real event that happened.
Yeah, I'd be suspicious if this wasn't written in the 80s, right? It's like if they had
Yeah.
just made this movie and then that came out, then I'd be like, oh,
Oh,
something went wrong.
again, I did not know until after I saw this movie that it was about a book from 1985. At first,
Mhm.
I really thought like, oh, somebody wrote this in the pandemic. That's crazy. Actually, what probably happened is some Noah Baumbach probably read this book in the pandemic and then wrote the script
Yeah, maybe
or the
for
screenplay
sure.
because technically the script was already written. Pull the dialogue from the book. With that being said, let's get on to chapter 2 because we've already seen the truck hit the train. And once the truck hits the train, we know that we are now entering the airborne toxic event, aka chapter 2. In chapter 2, we see immediately that Jack's family knows about the plume. They're watching it, it's all over the news. We don't know exactly how many days have passed between the crash itself and the notification to the public. I'm
Probably
assuming
a
it's been
day,
about 24 to 48 hours.
probably.
Um, and the only reason I'm assuming that is they have information, and that information is being given to make people feel comfortable. Um, and the information that they're giving is coinciding with what the people are actually seeing. The information typically given immediately doesn't usually coincide with what people are seeing with their own eyes.
Mm.
Um, but
I,
as we
I,
see, everybody is starting to slowly freak out, but Jack's trying to play
yes,
it cool. And Baba
right.
is, although she doesn't start in denial, she's following her husband's lead and vicariously becomes in denial very fast.
Yeah. Well, and I like how this sort of like the progression of information keeps getting more and more severe.
Mhm,
And you have Jack sort of hand waving it every time, like, ah, it'll be fine. When like it's not going to come over here. It's not going to come this way.
mhm.
Everybody keeps saying, but there's a wind. There's a what did
A
they
wind
say?
blast or
There's
wind
there's
system.
something coming from Canada.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I thought that was pretty comedic. There's just his sort of uh, conclusion that nothing ever happens and
Right.
everything is always fine. So,
Right.
um, and that sort of culminates until finally they have to get evacuated from the home.
Yeah, yeah, they're continuously he's asked for his favorite dinner, which lets you know he knows what's going on. Even the kids caught on really quick, like, did we make that's dad's favorite? Like, why are we eating so early? Like, why is all these changes? What's going on? Um, Smart kids. In my opinion, in that moment, you see how dumb parents can be, even though they've prepared their children for circumstances. Because they have prepared their kids, fortunately, for something like this. Ironically, their kids behaved in a manner in which they understood what to do. The parents, on the other hand, behaved in a manner in which everybody was going to die. Like, it just didn't make sense that they were the least apt in this situation. But again,
Because
that means they did
they're
their job.
closer to death.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
they're
that makes
closer to
sense.
the insecurity of death, whereas children really don't have a concept of death yet. So that's why the
Mm,
adults are acting in a manner that's much more
detrimental.
yeah, detrimental because the kids are kind of just going along to get along. But it's the parents that are like, who are both already deeply afraid of their own deaths that are
Hmm.
sort of like making a bigger thing out of it, Or Jack's case, he's trying to hand wave it away up until the
Right,
point where they kick him out of the house.
right. Like, legitimately, it's like evacuation. Nah, 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 get outside, and even in dark, everybody's gone. We're late.
Hmm.
I thought that was funny. But yeah, once that ordered leave comes in, they get out. They realize they are the last to leave. They get into the end of the line, and maybe about 3 or 4 hours later, there is an order to find shelter. And that's when chaos really takes over and ensues. But in that very moment, also Jack or no Heinrich realized they were low on gas, and Jack goes to get gas, and this is when he is potentially exposed to the airborne toxic event for all of 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, and it makes it stop raining and
Makes a
everything
whole
turns off.
appearance.
Something
Yeah.
happens, something paranormal happens.
Hey, listen,
But they
I
they
was
get
sitting there like, are we watching Nope? Or are we watching
yeah,
White
right. It
Noise?
did feel a little bit like a War of the Worlds esque.
Yeah, same. Yep.
Um, but they get to the Boy Scout lodge to take shelter,
Hmm.
and this is the most interesting part of the movie for me because he goes up to the guy on the computer, right? Because
Hmm.
they find out that he's been exposed for 2.5 minutes, and he has to go talk to the guy at the computer, and it's like talks about his arm patch, and he's talking about what it was like rescue simulation or something like that.
Simvac, yeah.
Yeah,
Simuvac.
Simvac, yeah, and he's talking about, "Oh, yeah, no, we started off as a simulation, but, like, we just figured that we would do this and,
Throw it into the real world.
just run a model on what's going on here." And they're like, "Just so, like, when it happens again, we can get ready for it." And I'm like, "Hmm." But it did happen. It
Hmm.
happened, like, a couple months after this movie came out.
Bum, ba
So which one was the simulation? Was it the movie or was what happened in Ohio afterwards the
I'm about to say, or maybe
simulation?
the book was the blueprint for the book. I mean, for the movie and the event.
Right, right, right.
If you look,
Um,
go
Mike's here.
to which what's it called? What's the city in Ohio called again?
East Palestine.
If East Palestine turns into Pleasantville in the next year, we know what's up. I don't think I'm smart enough for this movie, says Big Mike. That's
No,
fine.
you are. No, no, no. Don't let the movie bully you because that's what it's doing.
Yeah,
It's trying to bully you into thinking that you're not like clever enough for it. That's bullshit. You
yeah.
are, trust me. It's just trying to be pretentious. Um, yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely. Great way to respond to that, Nick, because I think that's exactly what it's trying to do is get you to feel like you just can't keep up. And there's nothing too complex about what's going on,
Mm-mm.
except for the fact that they don't want you to know what's going on.
Yes,
That's the most
exactly.
complex part about this movie is them
Exactly.
trying to hide the simplicity of what's going on.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm. Corey's got the
so yeah.
right response.
Mhm.
See, I think it's the other way around. Too base to engage in the foolishness of this thought
Ah,
pattern. There you go. Yeah. I
ditto.
think that that's probably more accurate, because it's definitely, yeah, it's definitely trying to hide behind a layer of, "Ooh, you just don't get it." And no,
Matter
we
of fact,
get
that's the
it.
way to explain it. Mike, this movie's not shattering any realities, but
No, no, no.
it's
Definitely
not.
not.
Um, with that being said, more reality to shatter about this movie. So I didn't mention before they get to Camp Daffodil when they're at the gas station. Jack feels like that feeling that he's always been feeling, something looming over him, is in the cloud, which is apparently the same feeling he felt when they have to leave Camp Daffodil, and that's his first encounter with the Gray Man. Um,
At the grocery store.
was the first one at the grocery store?
Or maybe that
Oh,
was
you're
the
right.
second
No,
one.
the first one was at the grocery store. The first,
'Cause he bumps into him at the grocery store, right?
yeah. He doesn't bump into him. He's walking, and somebody else is trying to avoid him and runs into the little kiosk as the girls are talking crap to Bobette,
And but
and
he
he's walking
crashes
with
his
no
cart
shorts.
into him, into Jack's cart.
Oh, you're right. The one where he
Yeah.
does has to push it off with his hand. Yeah, I remember
Mhm.
that. When they're walking
Mhm.
through the aisle. Yeah, I do remember that. That is the first interaction. Man, it's weird how I can do that sometimes. Like, how do I know? Oh, yeah, okay, I remember seeing that.
Right, you gotta rewind in your head,
Be
for
kind
sure.
and rewind.
Yes, sir.
Um, so yeah, Heinrich and Baba at this point, once they get to Camp Daffodil, though, they seem like to be the seat of information for the camp. Heinrich is given a speculation from what he's read, what he's heard on the radio, et cetera, which is really actually how we pass information nowadays. Like he is social media trending category or trending tab in 1984 at the moment. And that's the other interesting part. The book was written in 85. This movie takes place in 84, so the book takes place in 84 and this movie comes out in 2022. Mike
Mm.
said, "No, he handed him the rabbit the darter dropped." Yes, that was in the field. That's when they had the interaction at Camp Daffodil.
Right, right,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah.
You're
So yeah,
right,
so
you're right.
what I was
First
doing,
one.
Mike, is I was trying to remember what was their first interaction. I think they had about four interactions before they actually meet, or three interactions before they actually meet. But I was trying to remember which was the first interaction, and I think
See,
Nick
we
is right,
can't even
the
keep this
grocery
shit
store.
straight.
Well, there's only three scenes in the grocery, two scenes in the grocery store.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
I
and
just
he wasn't in
remember
the
that
last
the
one. So yeah,
shelves were very neat.
yeah, it looked like I said, Pleasantville-ish, Pleasantville-esque.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Potemkin Village in North Korea-esque. That's what it looked like.
I have nothing to
Yeah.
say. So yeah, they're pushing the information. Jack goes and he talks to the Simuvac guy, which you were just discussing. And that was pretty funny because the Simuvac guy was he reminded me of I can't remember the actor's name, but the goofy, quirky kid that, oh, hey, I'm just here doing a job, man. It's like almost
Mhm.
like the stoner pizza kid, except in this situation, he's the computer kid that's running the simulation. He just needed a job,
Right.
man. He's human.
Right. Right, right.
Um, and Jack is told he has 13 years, no, 15 years to live. And with no real reason, just, oh, you're
No.
exposed. We think yeah, about 15 years, give or take. I mean, if you're still alive to find out, then we'll know if it's still in your system or not.
Mhm.
Wait, what?
I feel like they told some folks in Ohio that.
Feel like they told some folks everywhere that within the last
Mm.
3 years.
Hey. Yeah.
But yeah, they definitely told some folks in Ohio that and Flint. Uh,
Mhm.
and they
Mhm.
had to
Mhm.
find out to find out if the Niacin D would kill him. That's what they're waiting 15 years for
Yes.
now. Jack talks to Murray. Murray gives him a gun, and Murray is starting to actually seem crazy finally. Like at first, I wasn't sure if Murray was off or not, but now it's very clear. Murray has no clue what's going on with the rest of the world. He is stuck in his head. Yeah, and maybe that's what education does to you. Who knows? Um,
Murray kind of is like Jiminy Cricket in a way,
that is a
where it's just like almost kind of like a conscience character or like a imaginary character.
Jiminy Cricket was considered the Murray of Pinocchio. I'm
Fuck.
just when you said it, I was like, oh, I don't know if he
uh,
knows.
oh yeah, I did. I walked right into that one. Shit. Fuck.
Sorry.
Canceled. All right.
Oh, wait. Hey, what I say all the time.
Right.
Cancel is not a bad thing. Only for the first 3 days. After 72 hours, trending.
Okay. Gotcha.
But yeah, so after they have to get evacuated from the camp as they're waking up. So it seems like every time they wake up to a new day, some new tragedy has come. It's even gotten even worse. Now they're sent back out onto the road. And something I noticed is on the way into Camp Daffodil, the cloud was dominating the sky. But now that it's daytime and the sun is up, the cloud is gone.
Mhm.
The toxic event is gone. They're still talking about it, but it's not there to be seen anymore.
Right.
Um, they follow what excuse me, Jack sees two gentlemen who look like gun owners, and they have what looks like an NRA sticker on the back of their Jeep, and he follows them through the woods. The way they were driving, I don't think they knew where they were going, but
No,
hey,
they definitely didn't.
at this point, it seemed like they were trying to lose Jack.
Yes, they had no
Um,
fucking clue where they were
no clue.
going. Yeah.
Jack ends up in the river. His son is smart enough to tell him to cut the engine so he doesn't flood it, and they river raft for about 30 yards. Come to a moment, and then they're able to drive out miraculously. They end up at another
Yeah,
camp,
it's just for
and
the joke of why do sheep have lashes or whatever? The little girl asks while they're floating down the river.
oh, I didn't catch that.
Right. Yeah, because it's so hard to catch any of these damn dialogue pieces. But yes, the
There's a
little
lot
one
to
of the little
miss.
girls is asking Jack, "Do sheep have lashes?" while they're floating down the fucking
Oh,
river.
right. No, she asked, Mom, does sheep have lashes? I don't know. Ask your dad. Dad, does sheep have lashes? I don't know. Ask Henry. Henry, does sheep have lashes? And he goes into his diatribe about it.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny, actually. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, they get out. They end up making it to another camp. With Henrik's help. And then that's when the guy is giving this whole speech because they've been told no one can leave, and paranoia ensues. This guy's going crazy about how they can't leave and they're being held prisoner, and um, it actually starts to seem like one of Jack's lectures,
Mm-hmm.
and Jack applauds it, and then they move on. We find out that 9 days later they're actually able to go home.
Right.
Interestingly enough, Mike says, "I don't think a single moment of this movie was funny till you two discussed
Yeah,
it."
you really
Hey,
have to
listen,
tease out some of these elements because it's
right?
not overtly funny. It's really not. Like, the funniest line is when Jack says, "I have a I" what did he says? "I'm tentatively scheduled to die."
That was funny. That
Like
was
you and
really
everybody else, dude.
right. Like,
Yeah,
ooh, welcome to the club.
yeah, yeah.
I also want to say, Mike, and I'm gonna speak for Nick on this one. Can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we can both sit through a Bo Burnham special.
You know, you gotta speak for yourself because I tried to get through that damn Inside special, and I just threw my
Oh
TV
yeah,
out.
I don't. I'm not saying I've seen
Yeah.
his latest one or anything. I got through
Mhm.
some of his older ones. I don't know if I could sit through the new stuff, but I was interested before. I was like, what is this about? I want to understand it. Now
Mm.
I don't. And it's good. It's just not for me. Corey says
Yeah.
that thing with the shelves is the thing with the shelves is a hell of a visual study, by the way. Just to point out an elitist disconnect. It's not a false it's not a false American worship of banality that makes perfect rows of product available. It's not a false American worship of yeah.
Right.
It's someone busting their ass night. Thank you. That is yes. It's someone busting their ass night after night to restock the shelves. You got a tea Earl Grey hot like attitude from. You got a tea like Earl Grey attitude from Star Trek where it just
Right.
appears from thin air that where it appears from thin air that way postmodernist with these postmodernist strawmen. I
Yeah.
apologize for stumbling and stuttering over what you read. I was trying to read it,
Again,
comprehend it, and say it.
yeah, the concept that the Potemkin village is what I mentioned with North Korea, right? You
Mhm.
have these when the tourists get taken into North Korea, they get taken to these supermarkets where everything is perfectly stocked, and that's supposed to simulate the like,
Everything is good. Everything
yeah,
is
the
okay.
reality of the communist nation. But the real reality is that yes, people are working their asses off to make sure that those shelves are stocked every night, and yeah, it doesn't just happen. I think there are a lot of people who think that their food just comes from the grocery store
Oh
and
my
that's
god, so many actually.
it.
It's so disgusting, and I have to say it that way
I
because I've
don't
had
know
that
how it's
discussion.
possible, but I believe it. I do. I don't
I've
know.
had that discussion with people, and I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, when they drop off the food at the store and they get it, and like it comes from the shops, and they're like, wait, drop it off from where? I'm like, from the farm factories that
Where do you think food comes from?
they were like, the back of the store. I promise you that was their answer. I was just like,
The
this
stork
was this
carries
was in the
it.
last year, maybe. The
Yeah.
person was an adult, almost our age, if not. I mean, no, I think they are my age. Yeah, so I've had
When
that
a
discussion.
Vons and a Pavilions love each other very much, they decide.
They have a macaroni baby.
Yeah.
Man, yeah. I don't know what people think. But I think just to what Corey is talking about with the store, the market, the uniformity of it all, and even to prove again to reiterate what you just added on to that, Nick, about how it's to make everything seem like it's acceptable, everything is okay, you have no worries in the world. Just get into chapter 3.
Mhm.
Chapter 3 is called Dialorama because the
Yes.
drama comes from the dialar. So you have dialorama
Dylar.
and dialar.
Afraid
And
to
we are
die. Take
basically
some Dylar.
we basically get back to life. And the supermarket is upgraded. So now not only do you have perfectly aligned rows and everything is beautifully put together and aligned, even in the welfare aisle, you have a butcher shop now. They didn't have a
Yes.
butcher shop at the beginning.
That's right. I do
That
want to
butcher
mention
uh,
what Corey said too, because there was a point you made about how elitist that sort of critique is.
mhm,
Because he's claiming that the elitist would say that it's a false American worship, that sort of like material worship that would make the shelves fully stocked and uniform, but it
right,
really is the hard work of the
right,
people that do the thing.
right, a thousand
Um,
percent.
yeah, for sure.
In this scenario, I think it was to also hint one of two things: either that something was extraterrestrial going on, and because the supermarket is seen as the seat of existence for the suburban towns, um, that this entity has settled into the supermarket, and that's how it expanded, and that's why it's so well put together and beautiful. However, um, I think it also was a possibly a way of pointing out, like we said, how they want everything to seem perfect. So you have the military, and we know that there is a military presence because of the event. And so it's like, oh no, the military did this because you guys were so good during the event. They gave you guys a butcher shop and made sure that everything was nice and pretty, and they even gave you a bigger store. Either way, it's a misdirection and it's nasty.
Yeah, and it reeks back to the cynicism of the author, right? Because it's like you're destined to die, but let's throw a butcher shop in your grocery store, and you
Mhm.
stupid pigs will be happy about it.
Yeah,
Which
and we
is,
all know
yeah,
that.
that's a gross commentary.
Right. And, if we think about modern society where we believe food is poison, let's just give them more food.
Right, 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 right.
Or, well, yes, I don't know if we as a society believe that, but you get what I mean.
Mm-hmm,
Uh,
mm-hmm.
so as they come back, they're in the market. And Jack sees Murray. He talks to Murray about how Babette has changed. I forgot to mention earlier that Murray has a thing for Babette, and it's very clear about how he talks about her hair. And by the end of this movie, I think something weird's going on between them, but we're gonna talk about that. Be quoting that man at my dinner table. As they're in the store, they do talk about one thing. Jack and Murray. Murray tells Jack that Kostakis actually died surfing in Malibu. I thought that was interesting for multiple reasons. The event, one, Kostakis was a pretty large guy. So the concept of them throwing out there like, oh yeah, he was out there surfing and he died in the surf. I mean, I could believe it because I've seen larger people surf. However, I'm not sure if that was something that was real in the 80s. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like the way they have all these pretentious undertones to everything else, but not to that. That sounds to
Oh
me
no,
like
they
Murray.
did. They
Oh,
did because they said, "Oh, what an enormous man! He was like 300 pounds. How could he
yeah,
have?" I mean, like
you're right. They did.
that comes from the authors again. Like, oh, this fat fuck was 300 pounds. How could he have possibly
Possibly been
fallen,
surfing.
swam, drowned in the water? Yeah.
Right. Um,
Big
the
Mike
other
says he thought Murray was Mr. Gray initially.
There was a moment for that. Yes, there was a moment where that came up in my head. And well, actually, it was brought to my attention. I said, "Oh, that would be cold blooded right there.
Hmm.
That would be some cold blooded business." But in this moment, and this is around the time I actually started to think, was Murray possibly the person that's behind everything? I started thinking Murray murdered Kostakis in the midst of everything going on. This guy's walking around with guns. He's like, "Oh, I could give you this one because I got one under my hot plate." Fingerprints and DNA evidence had come up in the 80s. That was a thing already. You know what I mean? Um, so it made me start thinking in that moment that possibly with all the chaos ensuing and things going on, he took that opportunity to kill Kostakis and hide the body, or just toss the
Uh,
body in the ocean.
no, I think it's just more of that thing of like, you know, um, Fatty is 300 pounds and, went out and surfed and all of that stuff. I don't know. There's probably a bit of a commentary about the doing what you love, dying and doing what you love.
Yeah, that's fair.
And also the unfulfilled potential that Jack might feel because he's probably never been surfing on,
Mhm.
in California before. So yeah, there's a lot of it, but it does reek of a little bit of cynicism for sure.
Right. Fair. Let's see. Jack says Babette's change. Oh yes, I was questioning if the store was alive. I started questioning if the store itself was alive, but that's to that theory I had a minute ago about the entity itself settling, whatever that was in the cloud, settling into the store. Um, we see the man from the field. Oh, Jack goes to the doctor, and the doctor runs some tests, tells him his potassium is high. What does that mean? We don't know. They don't even explain it. Even the
Jack
doctor
doesn't.
kind of just brushes it off.
Mhm.
But it raises Jack's eyebrow, and he hasn't told his doctor about the potential exposure. And when his doctor inquires if he was exposed, he's like, "No, no, of course I wouldn't. I would have told you if I was." And he's like, "And you have no reason to lie to me." They both get quiet, and it's like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna walk out of here now." Um, and yeah, after that, we just see Babette crying and staring out the window, and then she leaves to go and do what she needs to go and do for what she needs to go and get it for.
Mhm.
Uh, but as we're doing the research now, Denise has done her research. Jack's done some research. He even had the chemist at the school look into the pill, break it down, find out what it was, and no one has heard of Dylar. The only thing they've come to the terms is uh Dylar is an unknown drug, is not on the market, and because of that, we got an issue. We don't know what Bobette's doing. She
Hmm.
might be taking that hard dope.
Maybe,
Uh,
maybe.
she rocked it up real good. I don't know. Sorry, I'm gonna stop. So Jack presses Bobette a little bit more when she comes home late that evening after she left out. And she finally tells him what's going on and says, "Just let me tell you my way." And I'm like, you've been telling it your way the whole time, lady. You haven't.
Sounds like I'm gonna be pissed soon.
Sounds like yeah, there's no win in this,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just let me tell it my way. Your way, I don't think is gonna help. So let's just tell me. How about that?
Hmm.
Because if you got to tell me a particular way, it don't matter what you got to say. It's not gonna work out.
Sounds like
Uh,
bullshit.
Baby shit, baby shit, baby shit. And in fact, it was baby shit, and more
The
bullshit.
bullest of shit.
The
I mean,
bullest of
come
shit.
on.
So the story goes as such: Babette feels like she has a condition, and she goes and she finds some researchers, and they're doing research with drugs on this particular condition. And she volunteered to be a test subject for the experimental drug Dylar. It's supposed to help her with her condition. And then she was dropped from the program. And even after she was dropped from the program, she was given an ultimatum because, it's considered unsafe and illegal now. But she was given an ultimatum. And she made a private agreement to give her body to the project manager. Because this isn't a conceptual person. At first, it was a conceptual person. Now it's an actual person that she's giving her body to get this drug. Now, this has been going on for some months, and she says to Jack, even though Jack doesn't hear it, there was no one was inside of anyone, insinuating there was no sex, which makes me go, so how are you giving your body? Sounds like you're lying some more. Yeah. Then we find out
Yeah.
the drug didn't work any damn way. So if you know this, why are you still getting the drug?
Because she's still afraid of death. Yeah. Again, that's like aside from the cucking your husband part, the earnesty I felt in her sincere fear of
Oh,
death, I felt was it was kind of a sweet moment
yeah.
if she hadn't cucked her husband.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell him you have thanatopia before you go and give your body to another man. Let's try there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Especially when Jack has been talking about how much he's afraid of death too. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. There is something about well, we'll get to him, and then I have something about the gray man that I did consider, but we'll get to that. So after she tells him what's going on, she gives her body. They almost make up, but then he realized she never told him about her condition. And he's like, hold on, wait, no, I can't do this. You
Mhm,
never told me what's your condition. What's the condition? Like, we've gotten this far. Finish the story. What's the
mhm,
condition? And she tells him that she is afraid of death. And I'm like, who is it? Just who is it? That's
mhm.
why you were stepping out on your husband? For drugs? For experimental drugs? Because you're afraid of death? Just go talk to your husband. And then he'll tell you, yeah, me too. And y'all can be like, word, and have a
You
discussion
too?
about it.
Yeah,
You kidding? You know what I mean?
yeah.
I thought it was just me. Anyway, however you guys want to go forward with that discussion.
Look, I can
Um,
deeply sympathize with that sentiment as somebody who is deeply disturbed by existence as well.
mhm.
But, like, yes, it I just can't the whole, like, I'm gonna sleep with another dude so I can get a fix of a drug that doesn't work. I guess it's sort of like, supposed to be the metaphor for how everything we try to do in regards to our own mortality ends up not working anyways.
Right,
Um, I guess, but it's way heavy-handed, and
right.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things, especially in that situation where it's like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. How you feel is how you feel. What you think is what you think. However, um, how you act and the way you behave because of those things, especially towards the people you love, that's usually how people judge your character. And that's where Babette for me is the lowest in this movie.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
mhm,
Corey says, "I did it for us." Kind of falls flat in this case. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, she did it for
extremely flat.
herself, and I think that there was a another earnest moment where she says, I'm sorry that she says, I love you, but I'm more afraid of death than I love
Than I
you."
am. Yeah, yeah,
And I think
which
that
true.
I think that that was a nice little honest moment too.
Hmm.
Um, but again, it doesn't excuse what she did. Like, come
No,
on,
not
bro,
even,
what are you
not in the
doing?
slightest, not in the slightest. And Mike makes a point that he went to the doctor. Jack went to the doctor and lied to the doctor directly after telling Murray that he lies to doctors, and Murray's like, "Who doesn't?"
Oh,
Um,
right. Yeah.
yeah. But again, just kind of that humanity, that human level, right? Um, so she tells again Jack the entire story, dubs the man Mr. Gray. Jack has another nightmare, wakes up and goes to find the Dylar. The Dylar might work for him because, he also has the same fear. And why is my question? Why the hell do you want the Dylar? You already know, you know what I mean? You know
It's
what this
just
is.
the again, the desperation, right?
Hmm.
Like, yeah, it's all of our it's the, the fighting in the dark that we do to sort of stave off our own demise.
Hmm.
We'll act desperately. We'll do superstitious things. Like, this is another one of those, like, oh, you find comfort in your religion, do you? Ha ha ha. You're gonna die anyway, sort of
Well, I think it kind of is actually, but we'll get to that.
thing.
Um, when your religion is yourself or humanity, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so Jack tears through everything. He's in daughter's room. He's tearing through the trash. He's looking for the pills. He's looking for the pills, but he doesn't find the pills. He finds the number. Which is again weird because we also saw was getting the pills all the way into the last camp. Actually, past the last camp because she left again when they got back home and everything was fine. That's why she had the Dylar so late into the movie. So when she says, "Oh, it was only some months and we're not doing it anymore," it's like, you were just there like 2 days ago. Of course you're not doing it anymore. You got your pills.
Right.
You'll be back.
You also go to a quote unquote class multiple times a week.
What class? The class she
A
teaches.
class, yeah, that she quote unquote teaches, but I think that that might have been a cover for,
Oh
you know,
yeah, I don't think she was going to
going
the
to the
class. I think
motel.
the class is like 1 day a week, not three,
Right.
or 2 days and not three. I think yeah, for sure one of those days she's at the motel. Um, so yeah, he finds it. He goes in. He calls the number, gets the address and everything, and they agree to meet. Uh, he gives his lecture, heads straight over to Mr. Gray, and they have a discussion. I think this is my favorite part with Mr. Gray specifically. Of what is really the only part with Mr. Gray, but the detail of him trying to explain certain things, the way he was talking about the ins and outs of what it is he believes, and it was like, is he crazy? And it's like, no, he's not crazy. Um, the phasing in and out of the bodies, when he showed Babette and how she gave her body, he showed Jack exactly what she does, and she lays on top of him, and their bodies phase together, which is why I think he saw that in that dream. He saw Mr. Gray. I don't think he was dreaming. I really think Mr. Gray can control her body. I don't think Mr. Gray is human. That's a question I have for you. Do you think Mr. Gray is human?
Oh, well, I don't know.
Mhm.
He's either an alien or just Eastern European. I don't know. One or
Yeah.
the other.
I believe he is an entity. I don't know if we'll call it alien. Something that makes me think about it. I think he could be what they are trying to push as the embodiment of a religious entity. His right hand has what looks like a large incision that goes sideways when when Jack first enters and he sees him. He sees it's a scar that goes straight across. It's probably about little separated, and it almost looks like a stab wound through the hand.
And stigmata. Yeah. So he's the dope man of the religion, he's getting everybody hooked on the religious fervor, right?
Yeah,
Because that's all religions are, as the opiate of the masses, as our good Führer Karl Marx would say.
yeah. I mean, we do live here.
Yeah.
Um, Dang, that was a nice way to put that. Not per se, but I like how you did
I
that.
mean, that's kind of what it is, right? He's if the creator's being cynical, then Mr. Gray is the dope dealer selling
Hmm.
religious and existential hope for humanity.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Even though he has a Jesus wound. I didn't know how else to call it. That's what it looks
Yeah,
like to me.
stigmata hand.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Corey says the book explains the drug makes Babette unable to distinguish between words and real things. Yeah, she actually explained that her condition does she explained her condition was doing that, not the pills. I guess they changed some things for the movie. Right. Yeah, exactly what you just said. Yeah,
Well,
because
he
she
has Mr. Gray has that condition in the movie because that's why Adam Driver kept saying "hail of bullets"
yeah, I remember
because
that.
that's yeah he starts cowering because of it.
And that was the weird thing because it was like, okay, it was like at that point Jack believed that Babette and Mr. Gray had the same condition, which means he believes in the condition, right?
No, no, no. Babette says in the movie that the side effects of the drug are
Oh, they
the
do say the side effects.
inability. Yeah, it's a side effect of the drug is
Ah, okay,
inability to
okay.
distinguish words from real things. Yeah,
Oh, okay, okay. I missed that, and Corey just pointed out that that's what they said in the book as well. Okay, got it, got it, got it.
which again is another like very sophomoric, edgy boy critique about the things that we say to sort of placate ourselves from the harsh reality of life.
Hmm.
Words are just we mistake words for real things because all of the things that we tell ourselves to make ourselves feel better about life are not real.
They're not real things.
Hmm.
That's a fair moment.
God, this
Um,
guy's cynical.
he's pretty, yeah, yeah. He's dark.
Yeah.
He's pretty. This is a little darker than I expected it to be. And this movie wasn't that bright. This is turning into a darker theory than I thought.
Mm.
Um, so uh, uh, after he has that discussion with Mr. Gray, they talk, and Mr. Gray kind of knows what's going to happen. And this is where I start thinking again. He's an entity. He has to be more of an entity than a person. Um, Jack shoots him. Then Jack, while he's taking a poo. Oh, actually, before he shoots him, and while he's taking a poo, which I was like, "Yo, are you taking a poo while you're talking about food?" And then you realize what he's telling him is Babette had options. She did not have to give her body. She could have changed her diet in multiple ways. As he said, there's various combinations, which means he actually knows how to help her with what's going on with her, but she wouldn't listen. She preferred to give her body, and she gave her body. But that wasn't going to solve the problem because she wasn't really trying to help herself. She wanted a quick fix.
Hmm.
He told her how to do the work. She didn't
Hmm.
want to do the work. That's a message. In my opinion, that's a modern message to a lot of people. Do the work. If you know, you
No,
know.
just getting OnlyFans. You don't have
Hey, now
to.
that's definitely not doing the work. Hiding your
Yeah.
trauma. You don't even need no pole nowadays. Just a camera and OnlyFans. That's
Mm-mm.
crazy. Um, yeah. If y'all didn't think that was what was going on OnlyFans, shame on you. 'Cause that's definitely what's going on. But excuse me. Jack shoots Mr. Gray twice. Mr. Gray says, I'll be back in a minute with that answer. I forgot what question he asked him at the moment, but he asked him a question and he goes, I'll be back in a minute with the answer. And then he shoots him. I was like, so you knew he was about to shoot you. I don't think he knew he was going to shoot him twice,
Maybe not.
but he knew he was going to shoot him and he wasn't at the least bothered or dead from that first shot. And then we find out he's not dead from the second shot because he opens his eyes and he looks directly at Jack as Jack's cleaning up after he thinks he's killed him. And he did not kill him. He goes ahead and he takes the gun that Jack's put in his hand and he fires. It ricochets off of Jack's wrist and it hits Babette's leg and ricochets off of her, which then I understood why he survived because what is that?
It's a
What
25 millimeter. It's
25
a
millimeters.
tiny, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, it ricocheted off your arm and ricocheted off her leg. How did it even go in his body? Like,
Yeah, you gotta be
jeez.
careful with those though, man. They'll go all up in your
Oh,
body
they go
if they go
everywhere.
in. Yeah.
And I'm figuring that's what really happened to uh Mr. Gray is, such a small caliber, it rattled around in there a little bit.
Yeah, you don't want that. That's for sure. But he's
Uh,
okay, and
but he's okay.
they drag
Well,
him to a a monastery.
yeah, they drag him to the car and then take him to a monastery that's also an ER. And then I didn't realize until a little bit later. And I also talk about the gun drawer and things of that nature. I think it might have been a mental institution
Maybe a
with an
sanitarium or
emergency room.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But it had an emergency room, so they were equipped.
with nuns who don't believe in
We're
heaven.
gonna talk about these nuns. You hear me?
Yeah.
Now, but before we get to the nuns and the nun and what she said about believing, I thought it was interesting. You go to a church that happens to be a hospital. I guess they didn't have enough gurneys. They actually brung a basket to take Mr. Gray and took him behind the curtain as if, there's special treatment for him to be had, aside from removing bullets from his chest. But they had a drawer full of guns, and they seemed familiar with how to treat Mr. Gray. That leads me to think that something deeper is going on. And then when you get to, as you were saying about um, the nun doesn't. They don't really believe in, the religion and all those things. They even speak German, but they don't really believe in religion and all those things. But as the nun says, they have to fake it. They believe so that everyone else
So that
doesn't
you
have to.
will.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So
Another
no, they fake
cynical
believe so
take.
you don't have to fake it, so that they can act. People can actually believe.
Right.
That's how I took it, at least.
Well,
But
she said it in 2 ways, she's like, "Why don't you believe?" And then I don't, like yeah. Then she says that they fake believing so that you don't have to.
right,
Yeah.
right, and for the good of the world, to prevent the world from collapsing.
Right, yeah, for sure.
Corey says, "I'm constantly tempted to suggest that postmodernists prove me to be simply upholding
Phallogocentric.
phallogencentric,
Yeah,
phallogocentric,
yeah.
phallogocentric, and hegemonic limitations to the potentialities of being mistaken words. Wait, of being mistaking words for a real thing. Constantly tempted to postmodernism prove me upholding. I don't know what
Oh,
phallo
phallogocentric is the, like, the male-dominated logical,
ah
centric
dominated by the
paradigm of the world.
phallus.
Phallus logocentrism.
Wait,
Yeah.
look, it was like dominated by the phallus. Got it.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he's saying, "I'm constantly tempted to suggest that postmodernists prove me to be simply upholding phallogocentric hegemonic limitations to the potentialities of being mistaking words for a real thing.
Right. Things
If
like
you
women
try
think
to
doctors or chemists. Got it.
Yeah, if you try to jump over the Grand Canyon, you will fall into it and die." Yeah. Yeah, the distant missed the first part. There you go. Yeah. Sorry about that. Got it.
Oh crap.
Yeah.
I see how those two things, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you put the first one there. It is easier to kind of read it through. Um, again, to what Nick said, this movie does take a couple of shots at people, specifically men, specifically educated men, specifically middle class educated men, specifically middle class.
White.
Dare I say middle class educated white men,
Yeah.
specifically middle class straight educated white men,
Yeah.
and they have middle class straight educated black friends, so it's a shot at them too.
Mhm.
Um,
And
yeah,
they just have blickies all over the place.
hey man, at least they ain't got no little blicks that look like they on keychains, but
In
that's another
80s suburbia.
thing. It was the 80s. I guarantee you, everybody was packing. That was something I'm actually
Probably.
surprised we didn't see a little bit more of.
True. Yeah.
In Ohio, I don't know for a fact they probably open carry still in Ohio, right to this day.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
sure more people were armed.
for sure.
But you can't shoot a cloud. So, that's the problem, right? I
I
mean,
don't
you
know how
could
to
try, I
respond to that.
guess.
Yeah, I just don't know how to respond. You said that, and I just was like, and because it causes EMPs. Yeah, yeah, no, you couldn't shoot it because that bullet's just gonna stick to it or shoot right back at you up from
Oh, right, there was a force
being
field
repulsed.
going on. Yeah.
Hmm. Uh, so yeah, they believe to prevent the collapse, and then she tells them that maybe they should believe in each other. Try that for a change. After that, the doctor lets them know that Mr. Gray will be fine in a while, but for overall, he will live. They go home, uh, and they're listening to the kids go back and forth about different things and ask each other questions. They heard over the news they're talking about a nuclear weapons freeze. Um, and Babette quotes Murray by saying, Murray says, We're all fragile creatures surrounded by hostile facts. Why are you quoting Murray at my breakfast table?
I know, right?
That
We
was the part
just
I was
got
like,
over this.
yeah, like we just as a crowd. I was like, I know as consumers, we just was like, oh, okay, Murray's not the bad guy.
Yeah.
Oh well, Murray said, "What you say about Murray?"
Mhm.
But yeah, yeah, none of that is actually implemented into the movie. That's just how current society would take that. Like, hold on now, that's too far.
Mhm.
And after that, they realize that they are out of milk because Jack wants cereal and there's no milk for cereal. And they're back off to the food store, AMP food store, aka the supermarket, as I've been calling it. I don't know if you noticed, Nick, on the run through when they went back to the supermarket, the prices had went up a little.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
hmm Price
Yeah.
like cola at that point was $1 and some change, no longer
Mhm.
like 80 some odd cents.
Right, right. The
But
creep
yeah,
of
that's
inflation.
right. But yeah, that's pretty much where we end. After that, they go into a montage during credits or before credit. They go into a montage singing a song that didn't make sense to me, and I'm not even gonna try.
I turned it off.
Yeah,
Once I
yeah,
knew it
I
was done, I was like, "All right, I'm done."
right.
I
It's so funny
didn't
because
wanna wait anymore.
I got up and I was like, all right, credits are gonna start rolling, and it was going, and I kind of turned back around like, wait, are there credits rolling yet? And it was right as the first credit started rolling, and I was like, oh shit, they're gonna do this through the whole. Got it, got it,
Yeah.
and they did. But yeah, so with that being said, my final thoughts, and then I'll have your final thoughts, and we'll do ratings. Final thoughts for me: didn't hate the movie, but it was definitely like, huh. And then when it started making sense, they introduced another huh element. And I firmly believe, though, if you were to watch this twice, the second time around, it could be a little more interesting. You'll be able to catch more things rather than, like I said before, trying to decipher the code on what they're talking about and what's going on. Um, Cinematically, didn't hate it, but stylistically, I think it could have been better. I do. I'm not sure what else I have to add from that.
Alright, cool.
Final thoughts?
Let's
Any thoughts?
let's just do ratings. I can wrap my final thoughts into that.
Smooth deal. I my rating on this is a 4.
Hmm.
Didn't hate it. Can't say I liked it per se, but I didn't hate it. I want to give it a higher score if I'm being totally honest. I really do. Andre 3000 dancing at the end in the store aisle. I mean, I could kind of give it a 5 just for that alone because that was hilarious. But overall, I think this movie earned a 3. And to give it anything more would be, for the likable elements, which we do most of the time. So I'm not saying it couldn't be higher, but for me, I'm gonna have to give it a 4 today for the initial, the initial impact it had on me at least.
Hmm. Yeah. I think this movie there were some elements to it that I really liked. I think I'm right there with you. I want to like it more than I actually do. And I think it's probably because the earnesty that it does have is really human and really relatable, but it's sort of nestled in all of this cynicism and sort of like edgy commentary that
Mhm.
I don't know, a disservice to the earnesty. I'm all about authenticity and earnesty in movies. So, like, had they just toned down a little bit of the cynicism, a little bit of the pomposity, I probably would rate this maybe like a 7.
Mm,
But the problem is that the earnesty is just washed away with a lot of like directorial choices that are artsy and lines that are full of sort of eloquence and poetic prose that don't really feel like natural conversations. And I
mhm.
feel like a lot of that pretension gets in the way of the earnest parts about this, which is the existential dread that everybody feels. um,
Right.
so there are elements of this. I think stylistically, I like it maybe more than you did.
Mhm.
I like symmetry. I like um, bright, vibrant colors, and I think they did that well. Um, yeah, this one doesn't. It just doesn't meet the mark as much as I thought it might.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna have to give this a 4. I'm gonna give this, yeah, a 4. I think
You
that
thought about it.
I did think about raising it just a little bit, but I don't know if I could bring myself to do it. I don't know what I would raise it for. And I think
Mhm.
it's just what Mike said. I'm too dumb for this movie. And I think that that's what I'm trying to battle with. It's like, oh, maybe I just don't get it, you know? Like maybe
Right,
I'm just missing something that I'm just not smart enough to get. But I think that that's just BS, you know? Like you should just be able to get things, and yeah. So,
right. I do want to say, and even with you saying that, I get that. Sometimes we want it to really just be easy. Like simply put, we want it to be easy, and this seemed like it should have been a little easier.
mhm.
Um, this I didn't realize until now. This is an A24 production. We've commented on this in the past. A24 and their comedy movies are usually not comedy.
Oh, yeah,
So
it's not a comedy either. There are
yeah,
some funny moments, but it's funny in a way that's like, you have to think about it, and then when we talk about it, it's like, "Oh, yeah, that is kinda funny," but in the moment,
right.
it's not very funny.
If the comedy of something is based in its intellect and its intrigue, 8 times out of 10, it's not really funny. The
Mm,
concept
mhm.
might be funny, but the it isn't funny.
Right, right, yeah.
Um, yeah,
Talking about it is more funny most of the time.
exactly,
Yeah. Corey
exactly.
says that's the magic spell in reference to this concept that, you might feel like you're not smart enough for,
Mhm.
the subject material.
All
And
right,
Big Mike says
Big
he's
Mike
giving it a
says
3.
3 because Adam ruined Star Wars. Dang,
Poor Adam
dang.
Driver. I don't even think he was the worst part of Star Wars, but damn,
I
poor
forgot
guy.
he was in Star Wars. That's how
Mhm.
bad he must have been in Star Wars. Because I'm like, huh? Oh snap! Dang. That's all I got on that. Dang. So yeah, that gives us an 8 out of 20 though. Overall, it gives us a solid 4.
Mm, mhm.
And again, for those who've been hanging out with us, when you guys hear, you know what's going on. And 4 is not that bad for us.
No, it's not a terrible movie either. I think that maybe some people would like it more if you're more inclined to quippy, snappy dialogue that's very artsy. Some people like that, like,
Hmm. Corey said, I was surprised they made this. I obviously didn't watch it yet, but I'm getting adaptation vibes.
adaptation, Nicolas
Uh,
Cage.
boy, oh boy. Adaptation is a different
Yeah,
movie than I
yeah.
believe you know about.
There was an
Adaptation.
aura of pretension around that movie too, where it's like, oh, you just, like, oh, it's so great. You just don't get it if you don't like it. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's got similar This movie has similar vibes to that. Like, yeah, if you didn't find yourself gushing over it, it's just because you don't understand because you're a pleb.
Huh. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I went to a state school, whatever.
I didn't go to college, so there you go.
There we go. Hey.
Yeah, yeah, it's all right.
But yeah, overall gives us a 4. And yeah, I can't say I disliked it. Again, we tend to enjoy talking more about things that we didn't think uh, wowed us off of a page.
Mhm.
So yeah, I actually did enjoy talking about this. I enjoyed going through it and going over it. With that being said, this is our wrap. Do you have anything else for White Noise?
No, I think that that's it. Enough.
Indeed. This is our wrap for the movie White Noise 2022 film that is currently showing on Netflix. I want to thank Corey and Mike for hanging out with us today. Thank Mike for chiming in with his rating. Thank Corey for chiming in with his information. And for
Mhm.
all of those out there who listen, watch, or anything at any point, by all means, if you catch us live, you can always be a part of the discussion by coming into the comment sections and letting us know what you thought about the film and or just what you think about what we're discussing about the film. From there, we appreciate you. By all means, check out all of the shows we have. We have the Screen Time Continuum, which you're currently here watching on Wednesdays and Sundays. Tuesdays, if numbers could talk. Thursdays, you're going to head on over to Twitch. King underscore of underscore Ilion is where you'll catch Big Mike. Strawberries and Coffee is where you'll catch Dijon. Head on over to Twitch, catch both of those gentlemen going over there strong for you. On Fridays, you're going to check out the Exo Fathom. And on Saturdays, you're going to check out This Married Moment. Now, don't forget, on Sunday, you're right back here for the Screen Time Continuum. It's Wednesday, so that's right. You got a couple of days to catch up on some of our other videos, check out some of our other lives that'll be coming on, and then Sunday, we're right back here with you on the Screen Time Continuum. Thank you guys for hanging out.
And a couple things before we wrap up. Let us know in the comments if you guys want us to have another episode a week where we just talk freely about stuff, movies and TV and stuff. We want to kind of diversify our content a little bit. I know that it's difficult to follow along if you haven't seen a movie. So if there's anything else you'd like us to have conversations about, let us know, because we'd be happy to start adding that into our rotation to give you guys a little bit more diversity in content too. So please let us know. And then stay tuned for Sunday. Sunday, we are going to be reviewing on Amazon Prime When the Screaming Starts. And that is on Amazon Prime. So you can go check that out. When the Screaming Starts on Amazon Prime. It is a 2022 film. So.
Very nice. Very nice. So you guys go ahead, tab that, add it to your watch list so you know what you're getting into before Sunday, and then be right here with us to review it. We appreciate you guys for hanging out, as I said already, and I'll say again, thank you, Corey. Thank you, Mike. We appreciate you guys for the Screen Time Continuum. My name is Keelan.
I'm Nick.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one, guys. Is white noise something like shh?
No, it's, oh my God, let's get